Next Friday, yeah. Yeah, next Friday. Famous coming. There you go, Lewis. Carlo turning up. I just a couple of Carlos of agents turning up anyway.
Live when you're ready.
Right.
Yeah.
You ready?
Thank you. I think this is the quickest we've had a member request a workshop and then we show up. So please.
Yeah. That's a good. It's good.
So what I've done so far is take the long list from the board away and run it through some staff advice, and I'm coming back to you to tell you what the staff advice is, and then I'm going to record your responses to that staff advice. Sometimes you might agree with it, sometimes you might not. What we've got to run through is 6 priorities identified by the Maniototo Community Board. 2 priorities we added on as staff after because we thought it was worth doing at the same time. And I'm also going to take you through 2 that apply to all boards, and then any that came from other community boards that we are considering as a key consultation topic, just to give you a heads up. So what we did was give staff 4 categories to consider when they were looking at these priorities. They are consider it as a key consultation topic for the LTP. Those are the big ones we put in the consultation document that we ask several questions about, and they get a whole page. We could meet the need alternatively. That could mean they're a budget line in the LTP, or it could mean it's a distinct project or piece of work we pick up. And where possible, that's the category we've tried to use because that's the most efficient way to meet the need. There's a few places where we've requested further work to go into the next LTP because when I wrote this report, it looked more likely we would have one of those. And then there is a category of do not recommend further work. You don't have any in that category, nor do you have any for the future. Oh, you've got 2 for a future LTP, but all the things to start with. So the very first thing that we all discussed that came from all council or all community boards was housing, and looking at options to be providing some form of affordable housing in the district. And Sarah's just running you through the document I've got there. So we have identified 2 potential ways for the community to consider housing. And I really need to give you a disclaimer that Dylan, who is leading this piece of work, said, when I write it down like this, it looks much more ready than it is. It's much more conceptual in reality. But the 2 options that are currently being worked up is 1, there is an inclusionary zoning policy that is part of regional deals. Inclusionary zoning means any development over a certain size would have a portion set aside for affordable housing. Some of the details being worked through there do include what would that mean for a rural community? Would it even apply in places like this? So that's one of the top priorities for us to understand there.
The answer to that is no.
Most likely, yes. The second one is would handing over council's elderly person's housing to a community housing provider enable further delivery against this priority? And Stu will have had a workshop on that at the time I wrote this report. That was coming up on Monday as Gatepost 1. Since then, that workshop has taken place and there was an indication that council wanted more information. That more information will mean a financial analysis of what this will mean for us, what it will mean for the books, what it will mean for the tenants and residents in the existing houses, what it will mean for your decision making, what partners we could work with and what safeguards are in place. I believe to get that entered and a key consultation topic in this long-term plan, we would need to do that entire list by August. So it is most likely that we're looking at a future long-term plan for this one, but at this stage, that information is still being worked.
I've got a question on that. How did that get in there originally? Because one of our last meetings in the long-term plan, we took housing and affordable housing model out of our lines.
Oh, we did. You did that and you made a deliberate decision back. Was it 18 or was it in 22?
22, 23, 23, yeah.
22 it might have been.
Yeah.
They wanted quite a sizable chunk of the period.
And then it was specific to that. The reason it's come up again is there's a few reasons. One is if it's in a CHIP, a community trust of some sort, then you only pay 25% of the market rent and the government subsidise it. So I can't tell you what the ratio is here within the district, but if council runs it, it's more than likely that we're charging more than 25% of the income.
Yeah.
And they also kick in funding for operational maintenance. So there's a good reason to be in a charitable trust because they get funding from the government to help that. So it suppresses the cost for the tenant.
Yeah.
Equally too, I think our trust, just roughly, you know, if you look at our housing stock, probably close to $30 to $40 million in equity. We don't use that equity. We leverage it off our balance sheet, I guess. But when was the last time? Well, we've invested in because we've put heat pumps in, so we've brought them up to a decent standard. But we actually have quite a bit of land around there. We could be putting in more if we wanted to, but we don't because we don't.
Yeah.
But if you put it into a chip, they would use that equity to invest new stock back into your market. And so you could grow the numbers. But I think what it's shown is councils are not good at maintaining housing stock because how long we've been sitting on
Yeah, but the point is it's never come up in a paper to be there, because I'll be the first if this building gets wrecked to put more affordable housing here in the rural areas. And it's never come up because it's always been driven by Queenstown having an affordable housing model. And if we're going to be leveraging our asset base like we're talking about at council, then this is a perfect chance in the long-term plan to say, well, let's look at elderly housing in Ranford.
That's right.
And I guess in that there'll be an affordable trust. Someone else have a mechanism may do that better. I understand that.
But it's likely that we will try, and because council will have to make some decisions soon around Gear Avenue. And so the Gear Avenue one has been driven by the Cromwell Community Board who have strong views on that. And so it could be the precursor for a discussion to say, on the back of Gear Avenue, we think there is a solid argument to talk about community housing and affordability. This is what it could look like. And if we did go down that path, it does need to be in an LTP, whether it's this one or the next one.
Because the reason why I've always been standoffish in a lot is because we, in a roundabout way, miss out.
Yeah.
And we've got a lot of the housing stock, which an equity group will leverage off ability and have been openly, publicly saying, we want to look at doing Cromwell because there's such a shortage of Queenstown. Yeah. And it's like, well, why should the old lady living over there not have access to affordable housing in Ranfurly when that's all of a sudden there's 243 or something being built in Queenstown? And that was always about where's equity across the region. So, I mean, it's always a discussion of which we should be, which I am passionate about, making sure that we have the ability and do it on the representative ratepayers or a number of people, because building 3 houses in Cromwell or taking a percentage of Gear Avenue doesn't actually fix affordable housing for the young person living in Ranfurly. It just wants to be an option.
But equally too, it's incremental because you can't solve the problem overnight. But in 20 years' time of concerted effort, you'd look back and go, jeepers, let's just say we've got now 350 housing stock that so you've got to make a decision, and incrementally every year you add 1 or 2 to your
I get
there.
But I guess you go back, we've had to go into amalgamation of different forms. This was built on the Maniototo County Council's money, using asset sales to build a housing stock. Now we're going to go to be morphed into another organisation, and basically someone else can control the housing stock. So I guess our role is to make sure that this housing affordability, it has to be here as well.
Yeah, so the 2022 model was direct delivery of a small number of houses in Cromwell at a certain low fixed cost of entry. And the 2 models that we're looking at now are those 2 complementary models with the wider impact. There is a lot of questions about the timing of that, given the state of things, and those are all the kinds of questions I think you'll need to raise to make sure that's a solid debate. The second one, not to move on too quickly from that one, is Wilding Pines, which was raised by the Vincent Community Board, but when we took it to council, all councillors asked to highlight this one, and we took it away and had a look at what we could do. It's a difficult one for us to act on because, as I'm sure you're all aware in this space, most of those levers aren't ours. They belong to regional councils, may they rest, or to central government. But the actions we could pull out and look at are setting goals on our own land. So there is some pest species still, including wilding pines, across both our parks and open spaces network and our roading network, particularly in the paper roads. So council can set some goals on a year for us to eradicate those species. I'm sure you're all aware that year is going to impact what that costs, so that is the discussion to have. We can also provide additional funding to existing community groups. The Wild and Conifer Control Group is one in particular. And then there is continuing on the advocacy and submission work. So those are the options we'll be bringing back on that one. Happy to add any other suggestions.
Well, in that rates discussion we're having, Curtis has been pretty big on having a percentage of rates. It may be that new pine plantations or new forestry pays 4 times the annual rate charge.
Yeah.
So the East Coast to the North Island, they pay 7.
Yeah.
So ultimately, the rates collected in the future could offset the work that might have to be done in the Wild and Pine Group, because it's going to fall on us. And if we have a new unitary authority, which will start in 3 or 6 weeks' time or 8 weeks' time, whatever, then that'll be the responsibility of that, whoever the councils are,
Yeah.
and wind up at Wild and Pine. So there's a massive, and I know it's a big focus of the government as well. So it may be that you just be rolling it, administer a role within the Wild and Conifer Pine Group. It is massive.
I'm just going to run you through quickly the items that we've marked as to consider as a key topic from other boards. Wherever possible to mark something as this, we've tried to give it a district focus. So the very first one is that the Vincent Community Board are looking for an alternate use for their Boundary Road site. Quinton and his team have provided a range of options there for resource recovery facilities. There are quite large costs attached to that, so a specific workshop will be taken to council to really prioritise and see what the appetite is to deliver on that one. The second one was a proposal in Vincent to look at transitioning the Alexandra pool to solar heating. Again, when Quinton took a look at that one, he said if we were to put the same level of expenditure into solar in another part of the business, we'd probably save more money overall. So we want to explore that before we look at any direct delivery. So that's where we've gone on that one. The Cromwell Town Centre is one we may do some consultation on because it's changed since the design that was last consulted on. So looking to make sure the community are happy with the new direction.
Am I right in saying, does the council own some of that centre
The Cromwell,
Bits and pieces and land, quite a lot of land.
within that mall?
Oh, yeah, most of the mall is privately owned.
the shops are privately owned.
So how
inside.
Yeah, okay, right.
our development's out towards the front, or the land and the car parks was the big apple to the
Oh, yeah.
big chunk of land. That's where at the moment, the discussion is being had.
I'll show you some next slide.
No, that's not what I knew the council was involved some here and there, but yeah.
It's largely the road reserve legally, so that's your guy on that one still
Oh, yeah.
until property jump on another project. And also in Clinton's area, Cromwell had asked for a specific delivery of a dog park, and Quinton and his regulatory team took a closer look at that and are proposing some changes to the way that that activity is managed that would enable that kind of delivery in the future. So he's got 3 proposals ahead. One is to do with the tag for life, instead of sending out a new tag every year. One's to do with how those fees are set between pet dogs and working dogs. And then the third is if there is scope within the community's appetite to increase fees anywhere to start providing facilities. And he's going to look at that more holistically than direct to Cromwell. Which brings us on to your priorities. So I'll just jump through my page. Sarah, that's page 24. So the very first one that you raised was to protect and maintain community assets. I sent that one over to Community Experience and also to Saskia's team, Governments and Business Services. And property are taking what we call a watching brief on that one. And Saskia's team and Finance are taking a much more active brief on exploring the options there. Not a lot I can bring you as an update on this one, but there will be shortly into the future once they've finished the rating review and a couple of other major pieces of work in that space.
And the conversation around the elderly person's housing, the land available, all goes into that conversation as to, there was, future use of that land, to think about the district, the ward investment in that. So, we're just working that all through. And there's a proposal being talked about, but still need to be worked through, is potentially what we do with this building long term. And if it was to be no longer used, there's obviously a lot of land here that this board could recommend to council, how we use it and stuff. So,
And I guess
Yeah.
we don't know how that all going to line up now because that's going to change.
Correct.
and how that can be is there any, can we put this land in endowment to the Maniototo Community Board?
Because you are part of the council.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, how do you get endowment land?
Because someone endows it to you.
Someone-
Why can't the Central Target District Council endow it to the Maniototo community?
You're-
Okay, well, effectively, if you take
We're giving
amalgamation
it
of
to
work,
ourselves,
yeah, you're an entity of.
of the council.
Yeah.
You're
so
not illegal.
Legally, that would be very challenging, I think.
If you get forced into amalgamation, there are things you could do, but we're way too early to worry about
well,
that.
yeah, but I'm thinking out here, 30 years
Yeah.
down the road, because all of a sudden, the land, this will be demolished, and hopefully it is demolished, and not for future purpose. And then if you're doing that, then all of a sudden, our land available for that could be retailed and sold off to be land for a development and home again. So I mean, endowment land was put there by the old Scotsman for a purpose, that it can't be just sold off for a capital somewhere else, and amalgamation has taken that away from us once. Effectively, it can take it away from us again.
I think if you have the brains of Saskia, Quentin and Peter in a room together planning for a pending amalgamation, you might find yourself in good stead compared to last time.
But it's a real issue because obviously whatever the next issue that comes along, obviously, right, how do we get our hands on that?
And we effectively may not be here.
Yeah,
Yeah, I suppose we're coming from a point where we've lived through an amalgamation and seen a lot of services leave, haven't we? So it's still quite fresh for the community. They've been through one amalgamation already, so it is a concern.
Just lived through one that was not done well, that had a series of protections from boards, so we can let you know what did and didn't work.
We're gonna make work of it.
Let's try to make it work before we worry about that. I rolled Fair District and wide investment into pretty much the same priority here because they really are. You've got a really strong desire to protect, maintain and upgrade these existing community assets and to find a fair share of funding to keep moving forward strategically. So we've made that a really clear signal to staff and we've got staff working actively on that for you. The next one on improving climate resilience and community preparedness, you were the only board to raise, which is very cool. I have just been reading through this meeting and sending copies to these guys, the National Climate Change Risk Assessment that was released today. The reading there is really grim on what's going to happen to local government financing. It makes this current form of amalgamation really look like we're just rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic, because there is a huge, giant pending financial crisis where we just can't deliver against what communities need for the level of risk we know is coming. It's all outlined in there, and that is really what we need to get across in these next stages of the negotiation, is that we need to set up the funding arrangements that lets our community deliver and adapt where we need to before the disasters come. So we've got that tagged to planning and infrastructure and community vision. Quentin and I are working with a consultant on our climate change and environment strategy, and we've got it all built in, and we're still looking at a December delivery for that document. So we'll need to keep that one a really live conversation and position.
I don't think you need to get too carried away. It's just how we respond when it is a winter event. And that'll be snow.
And that's in there to your point.
Yeah,
that you've made
and
before.
summer events will ultimately here will get us, will just be flooding on the Torrey and or a major fire event. And they'll be out of control of what council do, because it'll, as we've seen when it hits, it'll be civil defence or something will jump into that. So while our resilience is here, but you know, if we get, and I said to this at the Lansard thing the other day, and people laugh at me and scoffs it, but if we have a summer event that we've seen in the East Coast North Island, be a winter event in Central Otago, there's every chance we get 8 feet of snow or 4 feet of snow and our electricity disappears.
Yeah.
You're too late then. Like, and you can't just live on the doomsday prepper game, but as far as every other system is, you know, if all of it's run out of Queenstown and we've got Alexandria, we haven't got graders living here. The reason in the old days, you go back to the minutes, there was always 2 graders and one at Hills Creek. Always had to be at Hills Creek to open the road up to get to Alexandria. So we brought that up before in our meeting about road end. So that I don't think you can change much, and the funding wise, it won't change much. But health and safety makes it that the farmer can't go out now in his tractor to clear the road.
And you've made a really good point about people coming in, putting in heat pumps and no longer able to heat
Yeah.
in the fixed stove. And page 89 of the report, I'll send it to you later, that's in that space on what those risks are in the emergency management space. They're pretty much what you outlined to me 4 years ago, now in government reports, so there you go.
Your times. Haven't even lost me. But I mean, I think that is a big thing, and
I
to be
do too.
fair, the communities have morphed away from being agriculturally based, where they just expect the lights to be on. And, you know, if you talk Imaturi growing and someone hadn't got their pipes lagged, minus 16-degree frost and all of it burst into the ceiling, and they've got nothing, they don't know how to fix it. So our community isn't as resilient as the nature it used to be in rural communities with people moving in for different reasons.
And
Well, you see a lot of people now building houses and won't put a log burner.
exactly.
Well, if your power goes out, you're skittled. And then you've got your regional council still banging on about air particles in the air.
And our planning systems are still planning for a scenario that's no longer expected. We've seen over the last few years a move away from that low impact scenario and more to a mid-range, but our planning hasn't caught up, which means we'll have more people caught in those situations. So it's a space to watch. Playgrounds was next. And that one is a nice, easy one. You were very, very keen to pick up and act on the play strategy. Signed it to community experience. They're keen for that to happen too. They're going to put some funding options into the parks budgets to start considering from Monday and Wednesday next week. Very, very similarly for roading, although you won't be able to consider that as quickly because Quinton needs to work with Waka Kotahi. There's 85 projects assessed for prioritisation, and we'll keep working with you as he works through the funding on that one.
So those projects will come to council as a worksheet for at the Wednesday workshop, and then any of those that relate to the Maniototo will feed back through
So James Carter, see on Wednesday, correct?
Monday
Monday.
from NZTA.
Oh,
So those projects are in relation to local roading improvements.
so I've really got to be there.
11 o'clock.
11 o'clock. He's on at 11.
Cranfurly Pool, that's community experience. We've taken that as request further work for consideration in the 2029 or 2030 long-term plan, isn't it? However, what we would want to be looking at that stage is beyond a feasibility study. So David is going to include a figure of around $50,000 toward a feasibility study in that budget conversation in the coming week. And that one's another one for you to look out for. To see exactly what you said. We've had the building condition assessment on the 20th of April, which has given us the clearer picture of the condition, and it will be planning those next steps, including your suggestion you made at the time of would we repair it where it is or would we replace it somewhere else. So time to start that discussion through that conversation with Carly and Pauls.
Well, I'll ask you two this. Would you shift it?
What would that entail? Like,
Where would it go?
filtration gear and everything.
The benefit of shifting it is that you don't lose the season, I suppose.
Oh, but where would you put it? Where would you put it?
Stadium, if you want.
Down there.
Community area down there, you could turn it into a,
Hub.
yeah, like a exercise, sporting hub. Here is a great location, not saying don't use here, but they could go to housing. Down there is already zoned for recreational.
Just a question, because you're the ones that are using it, got the kids doing it, but to me, it's like, well, you've got it right in front of your town and you've got your playground next door to it and, you know, what do you shift them all? I mean, that's a decision you got to put in your long-term plan if you're going to shift stuff around. But then are you taking away from the coffee shops and your ice cream stores?
No, it's fair.
I mean, that's the discussion. You're talking about a bike park at the gun, you know, like you've got to put this in your 10-year plan. If you're going to do that, when you have it all together, or you enhance the middle of town and this land here gets used for community like that, that's what, you're the next shape of this, whatever shape it is.
Speaking of 2 staff additions, the second one is, shall we look more long-term and holistically about how the board choose to use the stadium into the future? And was a suggestion from Parks to start looking at that stadium and what the future planning is, and if we were to think about moving the pool there, where would it go? What would happen to these things? So there's not a lot of budget to start that, but we could start those conversations and start working it out.
If you're going to have that chat, and we had this chat, well, you may have been here, is the tennis courts were going to get resurfaced. at $170,000. So if you want to think that, chap, why are you looking to put the turf down there?
Turf is a
Turf.
ministry.
Turfs.
Yeah, but it could be funded out of your long-term plan. This is where the funding mechanism for having that stuff and going, well, 170,000 upgrade that. Can the engineer put a turf, start and then go? I mean, there are the conversations. I mean, if you don't get it through the ministry and your money stays at the school, this is where the mechanism comes for taking some of the Gear Avenue money, because you've got district-wide funding now. And if you don't tap into it, you won't get it. So my discussion is, if you're thinking about pool, have a bigger chat. Now's the time.
Too much on Stu's political scheming, but David Skoons and Gordon Bailey would be the two to start that conversation with if you're looking at those.
You've got the area, you've got the change of facilities, you've got the building. You can have your turf, you can bring it, because you're the next generation of the people and kids and doing it. So have those things, because that's a chat we, as councils, want to hear.
And so staffing recommendation at the moment is to put money in the next 3 years, for, was it 50,000? We have, you know, to engage with the community, to bring all those ideas to the table, to get some recommendations. And then it would, because of course we did the LTP every 3 years, is then, depending if it landed that, you know, down at the stadium, that we're going to co-locate the pool turf, whatever that grand plan looked like, then the funding would go and essentially would, because you need relatively good numbers to go into the LTP. We just don't go, let's pop the money in. You kind of need a good basis to put the money in. So we'd use the next 3 years to develop up those ideas, and costings, and then consult fully through the next LTP.
And to be fair, just the way my mind works, if you don't start putting some of that stuff in that plan, if we do get a mail go to somewhere else and the gold mining royalties go to Central Target District Council, 50% of it. Like district-wide funding has given this board a chance to have a lick at a lot of money.
Yeah.
Because if you don't, it stays in Cromwell, or the political battle at the table on Alex and Cromwell will be that it's Cromwell's money and we get everything at Anderson Park. So this is your time to thinking, well, it's not just the money our ratepayers are paying now. It's the 3,000 houses, the new development in Cromwell. Those guys will be paying for your parks and recs down here.
What do you think?
So if you want to be that way, think big. Think that you're going to have a heated swimming pool in Ranfurly with turf next door to it, with a joint facility for changing rooms and gymnasium and all that. Because we got to the stage when the rebuild of the school houses asked the education board whether the school shouldn't be back down there. They didn't want to bar it. But if you're going to build your facilities out there, and then you've got all that stuff in the land on the bottom, what do you do with that? And so those are chats.
On the other side of town.
Eh?
The school's on the other side of town.
Yeah. So they're the chats that we should be having with Gordon, because your funding mechanism now has changed.
We're here to work
Well,
through
you need to put it in, it's year 5, the long-term plan on a new pool rent, and let staff come up with whether it can or can't work and how you're going to pay for it and have targeted rates. Or it comes out of the Parks and Rec district funding, and it is pulled district. So otherwise, without being rude, you could end up with a whole new heat transfer pump station on the one in Alexandria for $1.2 million. We've got you half a pool here or a pool. So that's where it goes. Or it'll all get transferred to Queenstown. There'll be brand new sports fields on the outside of the airport, and we run around in grass and jandals.
the disclaimer. There are the thoughts of Stu, not me. But there's some good advice in there. The other staff addition was Quentin making sure we had the pump track noted in here, and that we are looking for the appropriate location for that to be. I think the one that is in mind has some challenges from the park's perspective of being just a bit small, and that makes the corners a bit tight, takes the kids a bit close to the road, but there's definitely some potential with that as an idea. So Quentin and Gordy are working together on potential locations.
So those tick boxes, why is the pool like further down or further across? Is it not on my priority?
The poll is further across because it's $50,000 now, and the rest of the proposal to be in the next one. So initially I had that ticked in 2 boxes, but it looked messy. But let's retick 2 boxes and go messy.
Bring it forward.
Yeah. We'll put it in both. Yeah, you won't see it in Sarah's, but there you go.
I like that.
Double ticked in mine. Is there anything else that I don't have on this list that you'd like, or anything I've given you staff feedback on that you just fundamentally disagree with and want me to note?
And is there anything, to your earlier point, Logan, anything that's missing from here that you're hearing about in the community? that
Well,
you- that you
I'll-
want to be-
I'm gonna go on the housing one. And I'm gonna go elderly person's housing. And it broad, maybe not elderly person's housing, but I know there's a real example where, and I've been pushing this and I don't seem to get listened. Or don't feel like you get listened, is it, and there's a lot of single elderly people that there's not a place for them to retire to, even though they're not in the. So housing, whether it be apartment type housing, where they can release the capital in their own house and live in a single or small unit house. And whether, a lot of people are on their own now, but they live in a 4-bedroom house, it's holding up to the housing supply. But there's nothing for them to move into 1 or 2 bedroom unit so the kids can come and stay with them.
That's the.
I think the hospital would.
model.
Well, they may, and it may be where we go in there and part of the hospital build a plan where also
Yeah,
it can be
yeah.
council joint venture. That's what we're looking at.
They do that for more, but
The chip.
plans for that.
We'll take the chip model that Peter and Dylan are working up. What that model would do is it would take the 98 existing units and put them in a council controlled organisation or a trust, sorry, that one will be into a trust that sits external to council but uses those 98 houses to leverage borrowing against to deliver more on exactly your thinking that would then take some of these elderly people out of a 4-bedroom home into that single unit and free up that other stock. So that's the appeal of that idea and why we're exploring it.
Yeah, it's a big usage here, need here, because a lot of elderly people are widowed and they can't get out because there's nowhere to go.
Yeah.
It's not about affordability as such, it was about actually they just let the stock go.
Make it strong.
Because it just makes stock available. And I think so therefore, in that, even mechanism, that would be one that this community could really build on. And it may just be making land available, and it may be the private enterprise make land available. But
We need land, don't
we haven't got a lot of land at council board, the community board here to do that to. It's tied up in 2 owners.
That makes sense. But we will keep exploring that one. I do believe it's likely a next LTP one, but we'll see if we can do that work at pace and get you as many options as we can in front of you to consider. And my email's still open. I think I have, you recall the date on the attendance report, anybody? I believe it's about 10 days.
Yeah.
So I think there's about 10 days to give me more feedback, and then after that, just give it to me anyway, and we'll slip it where we can. Otherwise, you'll be in Stu's hands from here, and he will advocate for you as best he can, and I'll keep coming back and reporting as we go. Then we'll build toward the next one.
Couple of questions. So that within this, we where, or is it not, maybe it's not LTP, but where do we see upgrades? Current
Updates.
facility, like protect and maintain existing community. I just,
Do you have a particular facility you want to upgrade?
well, like the stadium, the club rooms be a classic.
Stadium
26 years old, it's had carpet and curtains.
That would be a request specific to property, and that Stu would see in their budgets. I can't.
I said, like protect and maintain community assets. Well, it should really be improvements.
But improvements too as
I
well.
think so, because I mean, we've had 26 years that buildings cost the community nothing.
Yeah.
As far as, it's just curtains and carpet.
As far as I'm aware, that currently isn't in budget, so are you gonna be there still on Monday?
You don't have to be now.
Um,
I've got a bull sale on Friday.
That's what I was saying, it's like, get LTP, like, do we drop to 150 grand, 200 grand, every funeral seems to end up there, every function ends there.
Yeah.
It's a bit of a tie in, but
yeah.
is that LTP talk or not?
It is.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
And now is the time to add it in, yeah.
Can you name the club room for me again?
Just the amount of,
Stadium.
We'll have
Yeah.
some conversations with.
particularly around improvements around the bar and particularly around the barbecue area that hadn't never been finished.
Yeah.
Shade sales, whatever it looks like, louvers, just, I think it's,
Some of those large beams in the Clyburn were meant to be put in there, we talked about being used, some of it for landscape, but it needs to come up.
well, I mean, it's, it's
A lot of those have gone back.
They're gone,
Yeah, they've gone to the early yard,
Yeah.
for reuse for, so they do have a value.
Because in that discussion when we had it with parks and that some of the edging down by the barbecue area is going to be some of those bridge beams and how they'll be repurposed for seating. and that round there, so we need to have that chat to continue,
Absolutely.
before they
Well,
get
so
sold.
it's an area that gets used a lot, and there hasn't been a lot put towards it in recent time, that's all. I think we do some upgrades down there.
You're involved in that chat, though.
I know I was. What happened to that chap? Something happened midway through. It hasn't gone any further. Conversation for later, I'd suggest. Anyway,
But he was working perfectly fine when I was down there the other day. No, what's wrong with that?
yeah, well, it's the whole redevelopment needs to be done in there.
It's time.
It's time, 100%. It's time.
On the bar itself.
And then.
Yeah, well, it's like Rugby Club's spending $4,000 on a chiller there next week. Fix the chiller.
You're not gonna bring-
Yeah,
Well, and to be fair, it's not a public, is it public, is it? It is, yeah. And I would suggest that is a very good investment, because I went there
And look,
and to be fair, it was poor, the service they had down there at the rugby club the other day. Poor.
Beer was warm, actually.
and
So
look,
I would suggest you should have put $4,000 rugby club money into it last year.
well,
Things we have to go through to make sure things are working on.
well, yes, I'd just like to know the rugby club's paying for it. The community benefit.
Worth noting.
But particularly, I think just down there, I'd like to see I'd like to talk to someone about the work down there or make a plan. I also wonder whether we need something in there around marketing of area.
Yeah.
So I think we're spending enough on attracting tourism out of our lakes districts. I reckon.
From the Lakes districts in particular.
Well, like internal tourism, that's all.
Does
Well, I
the
know
community
the,
You on Monday.
I know the rail trail had a great time, but like you look at that Napier water race, you look at some of the other stuff that's going on, I think we need to be a bit more vocal maybe on what's in that area.
Bit louder, bit brighter.
Yeah,
We've got two proposals in the community vision space that relate to that, 1:10 a.m. and 1:10 p.m. Monday. So I will send that through and make sure those notes are there, and I'll get Maniototo Stadium to property. Anything else?
no, because then I do get with it, because we've got money sitting against the stadium, haven't
Well, if anything is going to be
From
upgraded,
their
that money will
reserves.
actually used out of the reserves
Yeah.
in the stadium first, so.
we? Yeah.
It's just formulating a plan that everyone wants to be involved with.
Yeah,
And then if it's not enough money to come out of the long-term plan, otherwise your reserves will get used.
yeah.
And that's will come through the financial strategy and how those projects and different things are actually funded.
But yeah, certainly I think improving needs to be on the top. We want to be improving our assets, not
Improving?
just protecting what we've got.
Improve, protect and maintain, or just improve?
Improve.
There's been a big improvement going in there. The Gimmer Boone Honours Board's in there now. It's a big improvement there.
That's simple, you know.
You can't see it up there, but I've changed it here for you again, so.
Yeah, well, I think we need to be more aspirational, because if you maintain stuff, it's only getting dearer to maintain everything.
Makes sense.
And you're sitting with the same asset in 30 years' time, all you've done is put lipstick on your face, so it's a chance.
Tools beyond 2-year plans, quantum 30-year planning, so all of these are ideas we can start pulling forward.
Yeah.
Pulling forward is your game.
Yeah.
Anything else for me?
I think it's pretty good, but let's have a chat at the workshop. I think you've got to remember too, about the promotion. There is a lot being done. There was a promotion group in the Maniototo, but sort of filtered down.
Right.
But Ants and those guys and Dylan and that's, you know.
I think it deserves to be met, like,
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
because when tourism happens,
It hasn't moved out of the region.
like some like in the Lakes District or whatever, tourism happens. It's there, it's cemented, isn't it? I just think we need to be louder and
Get it either coming or going.
You'll probably find if you've got statistics from the tourism guys, there's a lot more through traffic and a lot more happening, a lot more in that space. It's whether you feel you're getting a big enough bang for your buck.
yeah.
And it's a different market you have here. I think 80% of your market is domestic compared to Queensland and EV. So we can definitely, Ants has a guide he's working on at the moment that you can bring to you as well.
Yeah,
Visit
sure.
experiences. Great, thank you very much.
Thank you.
See you next time.
Very good.
Again, you turned it off.
That's it.
Just give me a minute to.